Welcome to the Economic Development and Planning Committee meeting for August the 12th, 2024. Time is 5:01. First item on the agenda is public participation. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes from our July the 8th meeting. Everybody get those? Any changes or anything to those? Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes for July the 8th have been approved. Next item on the agenda, economic development updates, annexation updates. Mr. Morris? Or?
Thank you. We have a couple things that we wanted to talk about. The first is it's not actually a type 2, it's a type 1 expedited annexation. Just to put it on your radar that it's out there, that we're talking about it. If you look up there on the screen, you see a yellow square. That is on where are we talking about? We're talking about Leeds Gate. So there's a house right there at the southern part. Would like to bring that into the city because he wants to expand his house. And it's going to push it off into township land. That current square is currently township. So in order to do that, there has to be a type 1 annexation because it can't be dual, because you're going to build a house and you can't have separate building requirements on both houses. So it has to be one and it has to be consolidated, but it's got to be in the city first. So in order to do that, we have to have an agreement with the township. I've been attempting to get that agreement so that we can help a citizen out. But that's out there. It's 1.74 acres. That's what we're looking at for a type 1 expedited annexation in the future.
So that's a big part of the lot off of 261.
Yeah, 261
So
goes
there'll
to
still be a
Leeds
home
Gate.
up on 261, and this just the rear acreage.
Yeah, and it's right there in the middle
Yeah.
too. It's
Yeah.
completely blocked off.
Yeah, it's pretty much
Shouldn't-
landlocked. It has
exactly.
really no access to any street in the city or in the township.
So that's what type 1 expedited annexation that'll be coming in front of you later at some point.
And on the, as far as any of the tax and the pay schedule on that, no information on that yet of what the costs on the...
What the agreement would be?
Yeah, what the agreement is.
I've got the numbers and we've sent them over to the township. The township wanted a balloon payment of twice the value of it, and that doesn't make any sense. That's not terribly fair. So we've gone back and we've talked about it. If we get that number to the right number, we certainly want to help our citizens out by allowing them to annex that parcel into the city.
Most tax money's going to schools anyhow. I mean, whether
3/4 of it, yeah, it goes to somebody
whether
else's
it's
other house.
city or whatever, it's still going to the same district.
All right.
Okay, the second type of annexation I want to talk about just a little bit is the proposed Rule 23. Based on what we had, the conversations we've had over the time, I put that, all the changes are in red for your chance to review it. Send it up to council if that's what you choose to do. If you are not the type of learner that learns by reading these things, I also put a little cheat sheet as to what this looks like. Essentially, what we're doing is dividing major projects and minor projects. Major projects would go immediately to council of the whole through a work session so we can talk about what this looks like or what it would look like. We're going to require a concept plan at the time of annexation so that you can see what this is going to look like so you can make intelligent decisions from the start. We'll have, at that first meeting, have an opportunity for either Jeff or myself to talk about the history of the project, have the safety director talk about what can be produced or what can be provided safely, and the service director talk about what type of projects need to do to bring utilities to that particular area. If we can hammer it out in one work session, we'll do that and try to do it through an annexation agreement, pre-annexation agreement to take out all the mystery. If we can, then we'll throw it into committee just like it does now. The problem we have, though, is that 20-day timetable, and that's not ours, that's the state of Ohio's. So what I would propose is that if we can't come to some agreement as to what services can be provided, that you'll just defer to the administration's recommendation, but take the services, still talk about it in committee, and then use that information for the ultimate vote on whether the annexation comes in or not. After the annexation comes in, then a recommendation comes in from Planning Commission as to what it's rezoned. Unless we have some pre-annexation agreement, then we can go right in and bring it in a quicker manner. So that's just generally what I heard from you. If that's what you were looking for, that would be a rule change to Rule 23 of committee. certainly available to talk about any of those changes either now or at some other time when you have a question after you get a chance to read through it.
So a big change is actually this in parentheses at the very top, that when the new annexation is filed, there'd be a concept plan.
Yeah, that's in the rules.
That is in the rules already?
It's another different place in the rules, and it's
Okay.
not in that rule, but yeah, it is. I think it's important. I mean, what I've heard from you, it's important.
That's it all through here.
And maybe just better than little pictures, maybe some, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Corresponding neighborhoods or pictures to show what that particular density looks like.
Not to make even more work, but would it be appropriate to have a sample of a concept plan available? I mean, it wouldn't be part of the.
No, as soon as we
rule
get
like
it,
this.
we're gonna copy it. Oh, you mean talking about a sample that,
Yeah,
what a concept plan looks
for the
like?
person that's going to prepare it.
Yeah, I can work on a definition and throw that in there
I mean,
if you want to.
that's a pretty big term. That might mean a lot, something different to
Yeah.
different people, and it might save some time, like here's a template.
Let me find out if there's an industry standard that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
We get concept plans all the time for preliminary
Oh, okay.
review, but, I think what you're maybe looking at is, what's the basic information we want to
Yeah.
see? So maybe road alignments.
It's something that's a little more so that every time we get one, it's not different,
Yeah.
because it makes it easier to go through and more objective, and make more consistent decisions, I think, if you get the same kind of information.
Well, I think that's it, with street alignments, lot
Yeah.
alignments, proposed, even proposed lot sizes,
Yeah.
or that kind of, I don't think we can get to the point where every minor driveway and
Yeah.
private road would be, but the major,
Right,
if we develop this, here's how we,
right.
here's the connectivity portion, the transportation plan, here's the development portion,
Yeah.
and how we would like the various parts to develop.
So that'll be in front of you. Take a look at it, see what you want. I'm just trying to help you make your decision, so whatever that means, let me know.
So I have a scenario,
Yep.
and it's going to go back to the Slivco property. Once we annexed in St. Edwards, then Slivco wanted to petition, it was 40 acres.
Yeah.
South of that, they had no concept plans or anything. How would that scenario work? So just annexing in a piece of land, we have no idea, they want to, well, we have no idea what's going to go on it. Nor did they at that time. They just wanted to bring it into the
Right.
city.
And to me, you can go either way. Each case is individual. There are some developers who come, they know exactly what they
Right.
want. There's some that don't. But I believe, going back to Wendy's presentation in the spring, is that property, is it in the service area? Do we want it in? Yeah, then bring it in, even if we don't zone it for a while. Now, obviously, the Slivco property, yeah, he wanted to do some type of residential development. He wanted a density that was higher than
Sure.
what we recommended, because how did we come up with that? We went to the comp plan and said, all right, here's what it says for this area, and to get the, kind of the lot sizes and housing sizes, it should, we should allow for R2 type development, not R3 or higher. So that's kind of how it really happens, but there are cases where people are much further along and they have an idea what they exactly want to develop, whether or not it really fits within any of the city's current zoning regulations or not. But I think that's where a concept plan would come in handy in key areas like that, because in my opinion, not only are the uses important, but also transportation network and connectivity is just as important.
Good answer, but I just wanted to throw out that scenario.
Yeah, I'm concerned in those cases, because as you are, that they're going to try to do a bait and switch. We're going to tell you one thing, we're going to do another. If we avoid a bait and switch by pre-annexation agreement, everybody knows what the zone's going to be in the back end. We can still lock them in on some type of zone without a site plan, if that's what we chose to do.
Yeah, that's right. Setting the zoning is your responsibility. It doesn't matter what they want. It's ultimately looking at the whole picture. What do you guys, what do you want to vote on?
But it's a little further down, it's past the bringing it in, the annexation
Right.
in, another step down the road.
Haven't seen those recently. Usually it's a developer who's got a plan.
All right. Anything else on that then?
So what do we do with
Yeah,
this?
you want to go ahead?
It's up to you. That's it's one of those that needs only a majority of council people to pass it. Is it an internal rule? If you want to pass it to committee of the whole and let them make that
Yeah,
decision.
let's go ahead and send it to everybody, and then
Will
we'll
do.
talk about it committee of the whole next time. Yeah, let everybody have it ahead of time so they can take a look.
Yeah,
at
I'll send it to them right
Yeah.
after this.
All right. Next item up is just general updates.
Just wanted to give you some idea of what's going on downtown with local businesses, some comings and goings. Sometimes you're asked. I can give you things once they become public, if there's something filed in public. If it's still cooking, we don't tend to give it to you yet. But here's a few of the things that are, first thing is the downtown vacancies. How many of these open are out there open? That's certainly a sore point if we have a bunch of open or vacant buildings downtown. I would say the top one, the one on Main Street, I just took a tour of that with Mr. Polito. That was the Studio Springs. That has been remodeled and is ready to be re-rented. We've got it on our website to help him try to re-rent that. There's nothing else on the first floor. You get the Wadsworth's got a lot of availability, but that's kind of off downtown a little bit. The one that really needs something good in it, in my opinion, is the one on High Street where my personal trainer is. That's right by the View. It certainly would be a nice addition to downtown. We don't want something right there that prominent to be available. But that's what's going on downtown. Businesses coming. We took a tour of Eberhard Landscaping lawn that's on Seville Road. It's right by the turnaround. It used to be the Carter Lumber, and after that was just a storage facility. Storage facilities, while fine, certainly don't bring a lot of tax revenue for us in terms of income tax. This one is a landscaping service. They've got 30 employees now. They'll have 50 soon, and they've got a capacity for 100. Really a nice, slick operation. So that came in last month. That one downtown that it had a Darth Vader poster or something in the front. I think we've got word what that's coming in as Galactic Drip. That is going to be some apparel, tattooing, and piercing type place, a similar use to what it was before. And I just heard that Bird and Company, heard some word from them, so maybe they're starting to open. That's been something that's come a long time.
What is that? What's Burberry?
That is, it's real nice looking. It looks like crafts. You might know better than I, Tom.
Yeah, and it looks like she's going to have some art projects in there, other than, I mean, even like not just painted art, but other type of glass type work and things like that in there. And she had talked about doing I don't know if she's really right now going to do like a ribbon cutting or not. She said one of these days she just may be ready, just open the door and come on in. So yeah.
So when they ask for door
that's originally
stickers,
where if you go way back where Three Roses used to be, right next to the MC Real Estate.
so when they ask for door stickers, that means they're getting ready to do something.
Yeah.
So we also, it's not on the list, but we Ohio Heritage Law is a boutique law firm that just opened as well. It's on the second floor above the View. So things coming in to the
Could I
city.
add one to that?
Excuse me?
Could I add one to that?
Please.
List? Yeah, PHI Air, Air Medical, Cleveland Clinic's helicopter that's based here. The middle hangar has been purchased, and their architect's doing drawings. They have to put an office in. All the helicopter maintenance for Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals will be done at our airport.
Yeah, it's real slick, that outfit they have down there.
Yeah, and so that's coming real soon.
Good. Thank you for bringing that up. They don't all come, some go. As you've heard or saw, Rite Aid has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy back in October. A lot of that wasn't resolved from just necessarily sales, but from my research, it was involved in that opioid lawsuits, so it took a little bit of a hit. So they're closing branches in Medina, and Brunswick, and Wadsworth. So it's a holding company that owns the land, so I'm not sure how involved in the bankruptcy they'll be. Obviously, that is a prime real estate for our city, and we certainly want to get that back up to a viable as soon as possible. And that's the only updates I had under general updates.
All right. And I know next in our packet here, you had the DORA survey out there.
We did.
So you have some data in on that.
Yeah, we wanted to have, you can't measure it unless you have some data, so we did send a survey out to everybody downtown. So we've got 27 people participated in those. All good news. We got 92% thought that the decals were effective and the signs were effective. 92% thought the hours were fine. 96% said they haven't encountered any challenges or issues. 40% have seen a moderate increase in their sales, and about half have noticed increased traffic for the launch of the DORA. So that's all good news. But the top one is the most important in my mind. All the participants who reported said that we want to continue that initiative. So that tells me very rarely do you have everybody agree, but it's what we thought. It's value added, not necessarily moving the needle for all the businesses, but there hasn't been problems, which would mean that is something we should revisit. So that's what we first got. If you want to measure it by cups sold, those are the cups sold by the businesses pursuant to that. So about 2,500 cups left their various businesses in June and July. So that's beyond what I thought it was going to be. Certainly we have, those are the times for our bigger events, our Blue Tips, our First Fridays, our Taste of Wadsworth. So all of those were fine, and I do monitor that with the police all the time as well, and I haven't heard a bad thing yet.
Good. All right. Any questions on the door or any of the survey?
No.
All right. We'll move on to building and planning updates. Got a couple of projects on there. Mr. Kaiser, are you going to do those?
Yeah, I was told you wanted to kind of know what was going on here. So in terms of projects that are soon to be on the Planning Commission agenda or have just been through that process, Salvation Army, public hearing will be required for that new rebuild. That was scheduled today. That will be held on August 26th, 2 weeks from today at 7 o'clock. 7:10, excuse me.
Okay.
So that's happening.
Now, did they have to do some rezoning on, was that,
No.
that's already been done? Okay.
Yeah, because it's a conditionally permitted use. They're doing a consolidation plan. They will require some variances only because of the properties that they bought and where they're going to be relocating the headquarters. It's about 30 feet shallower than the property where their building is currently located. So kind of makes it a little bit tight, but the variances are being requested along the street frontages to pull it further away from the residential uses.
Okay.
So I think overall it's probably a better site plan. Sheets, that has been through Planning Commission. It's actually, civil plans are ready to be signed by engineering department and released. What we're waiting for though is that there are still some issues between the two current property owners that need to be worked out because some of the improvements are going to go on land that's still part of the legacy and property, so to speak. So we're waiting to get those signed agreements from them. Engineering can then sign the plans and release it, and they can start. So ball's in their court. Same thing with Primrose School. That has been through civil plan review. Comments were sent out to them, and they're just, engineering's waiting to get a response. Once those comments have been addressed, they'll get their site approval, and they're ready to start construction.
What were the number of students in that roughly? Do you know what they were going to achieve?
You know, I think they told us it was designed, for building code requirements, it could accommodate up to 300 people.
Oh, okay.
They are expecting maybe peaking at like 120.
Okay.
Probably starting out a little bit less than that at first. But apparently they offer services all throughout the day, at least from like 7 to 5. So not everyone's coming in at 7 a.m. and then leaving at 5. So some of their half days, some mornings only, etc. But they should be able to break ground, I would think, this fall.
What's the location on that?
That is on Liver, on the west side, just north of Park Center. Also, Westfield Bank, That project is before Planning Commission. It's part of a larger project for the redevelopment of the Valley Beach Home site. There's a little bit more information that the applicants needed to provide us on the site plan, as well as they needed to make some changes to their traffic impact study, which was found to be incomplete. Didn't really address all of the intersections, the major intersections within the study area. So once we get the information back and have given it a look over, we'll take it back to Planning Commission with a recommendation, hopefully to approve, and then they can move on to civil and building plan approval. So those are the three that are the four projects that are currently on or just past Planning Commission review. I am expecting a few other projects. We've got two expansions, two businesses on Seville Road. I haven't submitted yet, so I don't want to really say who they are. And then also there's a potential recreational use, a new site build on Corporate Parkway, on one of those ones. I think it's, I don't know what I call it, probably an indoor, it looks more like an indoor basketball arena. So it's going to be kind of a, again, recreation center where tournaments and different leagues can make use of the site.
What was that address again for that one?
That one, I believe, is on Corporate Parkway. Okay, so that's it on that.
Any questions on any of those?
Yeah, I have one question, and it's kind of dated now, but at one time there was a recreation facility, you know, the hatchet throwing and the Napa building.
Oh, yeah.
How far along did that get? That sport's kind of died out, but.
I think they moved to Akron.
Did they?
I saw an axe throwing
Yeah.
not far from Canal Park. They just withdrew their application.
Okay.
I don't know whether, so I don't know if they're the ones that are operating in Akron or now, but.
No, I talked to him. He was, there was some disagreement with the landlord about a few things, and so he pulled out. He couldn't get his liquor license either to the point, the particular one he wanted.
Okay. Anything else going in there? Anybody looking at it?
There's talk, and somebody has gone to some length, and I think they've reserved part of a liquor license for it, but I don't know that they're ready to.
Nothing to report?
Yeah, nothing to report.
Okay.
But yes, there is work.
Next item up is the zoning text amendment, the riparian setback regulations.
Okay, I'm going to let Mr. Davis give you a brief presentation, and then I've got a few concluding comments.
Okay. This is Glenn Davis with the Engineering Department again. I've been here a couple times, kind of in philosophical mode in the past. This time this is actually getting real. This is not hypothetical. This is actually a real change that we're proposing. This first one is for the riparian zone regulations that we've been talking about already. And then I'll be here in the next month or two for some more proposed changes. We're getting real, so it's really happening. So just to remind you, in our last presentation, we talked about subsidy, and I introduced this concept of Goldilocks, and the idea that she wants her porridge not too hot, not too cold, but just right. We're trying to get our regulations that way. We want to make sure our regulations are not too strict, not too lenient, but just balanced just right. I'm going to remind us of that kind of as we discuss these in general. You may recall last time that I brought up this riparian zones as one of those regulations that seems to be a little overly strict. So we're proposing tonight to fix that problem. And I've introduced the solution to you last month. You've seen the kind of the skeleton of this. And I'll just give you a quick recap so that we can prepare for that legislative process of getting this through adoption to council. So to review, I mentioned most of you have heard the frustrations, and just to review, we have existing riparian regulations. There's no limitation on how small of a water course is regulated. There is, the uses within the riparian zones are very tightly restricted, and those current setbacks are what we call aspirational and some people would say excessive. So when I showed this map last time, the setbacks can be upwards of 300 feet in some areas. But before I want to discuss the regulation, I want to give a couple of new thoughts to y'all when it comes to the regulatory challenges. Some of the terms, just to introduce very briefly, one is waters of the state. And waters of the state, the idea is that the rivers and creeks and lakes in Wadsworth, they don't belong to Wadsworth. They belong to the state and federal governments. And so you may have heard a couple acronyms about that, just to make you sound and feel smart if you haven't heard them. NPDES, that's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And that's really primarily the federal program when it comes to protecting waterways like this. And then the statewide system is implemented through what's the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, MS4. And but the gist of it is, with all those terms, we don't own the waterways, so we just can't do whatever we want. We have to, and you'll see that as we go. So the state regulations, both in the revised code and administrative code, regulate this MS4 program. And we in Wadsworth, we have a regulatory obligation to prove to the state that we're keeping the waters of the state clean. That's really what this program does. And to get into a couple of the weeds here, those regulatory requirements, they're contained in a document. Don't read this. It's a 43-page document that has 5 zeros and a 4. And that's what our responsibilities are, to make sure we're compliant with the state regulations. And this document points to another document that has 5 zeros and a 5. And all this to say, on page 9 of that 60-page document, it says as follows, that there is a requirement to keep an undisturbed natural buffer of 50 feet around surface waters of the state. So, all that to say that I believe this 50-foot setback is that minimum necessary to meet the state requirement. And so when you hear the 50-foot, that's where it comes from. It comes from an actual regulation. So, and then one last comment about the context is this term waters of the state is vague and it's very broad. And it's difficult to know where the state jurisdiction starts and stops. And this has been an issue of contention through my entire career. So, and what it gets confusing is you come up into culverts, roadway culverts, catch basins, up into the systems that are in the smaller systems. Where does that stop? Where's the waters of the state? So we're proposing a solution here that's unique to Wadsworth that we believe meets those requirements and works well for Wadsworth. So we're proposing this 3-tiered system of defining these watercourses. The largest watercourse is this major watercourse. It has a over 1 square mile watershed, which also happens to be 640 acres, if you didn't know that. And that means that every water molecule that falls in that over 1 square mile area all ends up in this one place on this one stream. That's what that's referring to by watershed. So you've seen before, I took a virtual photo of one of these last time, so just so you're a reminder, this is a major watercourse. It's off of Weber Drive near the airport. So you can see this is one of the larger watercourses we have in Wadsworth. Then minor watercourses are, of the 3 different definitions, is the middle ones. It's somewhat of a transitional, it does warrant somewhat riparian protection, but it's certainly not as large. And they're shown in the purple here on the screen. And you may recall, I actually took a picture, a couple of these last time is for review, but one of them, the smaller one, was this one from Briar Thorn area. And you can see it's pretty much just a grassy swale, so that's one of the smaller, minor watercourses that we would have here in Wadsworth. So, in the smallest systems, we would call local drainage systems, less than 160 acres, less than a quarter square mile, and those would have no regulation. So we're proposing it for regulations. We're proposing a 50-foot setback from the ordinary high water. And why 50 feet? Because we just talked about that. That's what the regulation comes from. So as we've discussed in the past years, what the new setbacks would look like, not 300, but maybe closer to 120, because it's 50 foot from each side from the ordinary high water. Minor water courses, we have the 10-foot setback. Those are the ones shown in purple. And here's a couple of screens we showed last time. This is in the transition between the major and the minor. So you can see the major would be up at the 110-foot type width, and then the minor would be down to the 30-foot. So the narrower section in the center is with the new regulation, where we might have had over 100 feet before. Now we're down to 30 for a setback. And then here's that Briarthorn location, where we would have had about 100 foot in the past, going down to like a 25-foot setback or so. And then the last thing is the local drainage systems, which would have no setback. And I'll mention that, that those local drainage systems generally have an easement that is regulated differently than the riparian. So it'll have some ability for us to go and maintain and operate those systems through an easement, through a different regulation, not through riparian.
On the minor water courses, where did the 10-foot setback come from? Is that something that we could set here, or was that from a state document as well?
That is, you have discretion on that.
Okay,
That is something
okay.
There is no, it's kind of a, generally speaking, it's an industry standard.
Okay.
Put it that way. And I forgot to mention, the ordinary high water is another term mostly for top of bank. So if generally speaking, if you look at the top of bank, that's where the setback generally comes from.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom, and I think our current riparian regulations indicate that 10 foot is the smallest setback. So I think it's, again, one of those best practices.
Okay, and the last detail to mention is that the riparian boundary does also include the wetland boundary, and we've added a few terms in the proposed code language to make that a little more clear. So it's adding that clear objectiveness to it that we've discussed in the past. So just in conclusion, you see that we think this is really a nice balanced approach, not too lenient, not too strict, but kind of just balanced just right. So we're really recommending that you would forward this on for adoption, and then Jeff will mention kind of the process we would expect.
So I have a question. Could you give like an example of what the impact of this would be? So, you know what I'm saying? Would it, I understand it's how close you can build, right? But like, I guess, can you think of something where like the 150 foot, which is current, became a big deal, and if it had been 50, like it would have made a difference in the project, or will it not make a difference in projects?
Well, I think it will make a difference because it frees up land.
Okay.
In the first example Glenn showed with that 310 foot riparian zone, that was all unbuildable. With these new regulations, that would be, same circumstances, that now reduces to 120. So it frees up some land and makes that property much more developable. Now it comes into play, especially as you see in the photo showed, that a lot of these are in developed areas. So if someone wanted to do an expansion and you have a 310 foot riparian setback, you're not going to have a lot of room to move. So I think it makes development in that respect easier. And number two, and I've seen this case at least twice, where the riparian setbacks, when applied to certain projects, whether it's a water course or an existing wetland, created a situation where I can't do this, I can't put this building or this addition up without getting an approval. However, I can go to the Army Corps of Engineers, get approval to fill in a portion of the wetland. So therefore the wetland boundary changes and the setback then, so now all of a sudden, hey, I can do this building and I'm not within the easement, riparian setback zone. But you had to destroy the thing you were trying to protect in order to make that happen. So variances by the BZA were granted in a couple of cases.
So do you think that is it likely that like a developer might come back in and say, oh, I'm gonna put another house or two.
We're meeting with a couple developers now, and one of them had drawn up the plans based on the old wetland,
Okay.
old riparian zones, and they're going to be getting a lot of that land back, so they may be adding some additional houses to it potentially. It does make a big difference.
And that was the other problem with being too strict. I'm aware of at least one property where it was platted before our current regs went into place.
Yeah,
But based on this current regs, the building envelope on that land is about 15 feet wide. So what are you going to put on a 15-foot wide building envelope? Nothing. And so sometimes I want to avoid some kind of legal challenges.
Yeah, that's what
That, hey, you've basically
That's what-
used this regulation to take my property because I have no use for it. So this helps eliminate that by freeing up some space. And then the only other thing I wanted to add is passed out. The riparian regulations are part of the zoning code, and the state spells out what you need to do to adopt or change a zoning regulation. And so this is basically the timeline of what it's going to take to get this approved. So tonight, we did introduce this to the Planning Commission. They set a public hearing for August 26th, because council does need Planning Commission's affirmative vote in order to move on with this regulation. And the off chance the Planning Commission would say, no, we don't recommend these changes, you can still adopt it. It just takes a higher majority of council. But anyhow, to keep on track, I know that it's been introduced to council. I would suggest at your next meeting on the 20th that you set a public hearing on this ordinance, because not only does the Planning Commission have to have a public hearing, so does council. Anyhow, look at that schedule, but I think if you stick to that, we could have council's public hearing on October 1st. And depending on what you want to do from there, you could suspend the rules and adopt it that evening, or let it ride one more reading and adopt this on October 15th. I think it does have the emergency clause, so it would become effective immediately. And I think it's a good thing, because I think it eliminates a lot of headaches that the current regs have created.
So where does it put us, like compared to other neighboring communities? Are they like this, or so we're just kind of, or are we more?
Well,
You said it was innovative.
Yeah, we've contacted a couple different, and a few don't have any,
Oh,
and so which I believe is potentially their vote would be vulnerable to this
Yeah.
particular rule. Some of them, apparently when these were adopted by Wadsworth, there was what I've heard is NOACA had recommended this as an aspirational goal for a lot of communities. So a number did adopt it. So it's quite a variance of kind of not a lot of in between. It's either like this one or nothing is what we've seen.
And I think both positions, doing nothing is just as legally hazardous as doing too much.
right.
Mr. Kaiser, is there any pending developments that are waiting for us to take action on this measure?
Not yet. There is one of the upcoming things that I'm aware of, and I want to talk to them because we met with them several months ago, and under our current riparian regulations, it does impact a lot of their land. Should this go into effect, it's going to free up, and so some of the building setback variances that they were going to request in order to move the buildings closer to the street may not be needed, and it would help speed them up as well. There'd be one less step for them to go through.
I can think of 3 right now that I'm talking to.
Yeah,
that it
very
doesn't-
good. Appreciate that. Thank you.
If nothing further on that, then next item on there, you have a development fee ordinance.
It's me again.
There you go.
So I'll do my best to go through this pretty quick, but I really want to give you a little bit back, as I introduce this ordinance, I want to give you a little background about the engineering services group, because it really will help you to have some background about what we do in order to explain really what we're trying to accomplish with this fee ordinance. And so just for brief background, our group we're a key part in really making sure that as developments happen in Wadsworth, whether we're looking at some recent ones here, apartments or industrial or residential, that we make sure the infrastructure gets done right. That's what we do in our group here. And so just a brief background as to how it works so that you understand what the fees are doing. So the engineering services, from our roles perspective, there's really 3 steps here. Step one is the developer finds an engineer, and their private design consultant engineer will do a design. They're looking for things like constructability, looking for safety, capacity. In particular, their client is the developer, so they're really looking at minimizing upfront costs. That's really one of their, and they should, that's their job. So then the engineering plan review standpoint, when we step in, we're really then, either our staff or our consultant that we would hire is looking really as a quality control check at that engineer's work first. But also we're looking at the operational and long-term cost issues that we as an operator would care more about. So there's kind of a tension there between the design engineer and our review to make sure that we get a good final product that's both low cost up front and also operationally sound. And then the final step when it comes to our group is that of this inspection step. And so again, we have a contractor hired by the developer. We have an inspector that's either with city staff or a city consultant. And we're having that quality control and safety check through construction with that tension between the contractor and the inspector. That healthy tension makes sure we get a good final product. So that's just an overview of how it works. But now just look at another way and look at, compare the developer to Jim Brown, trying to get across the goal line. And the developer's looking at these plan reviewers and inspectors as really the opposition as he's trying to score his touchdown. So to continue that analogy, then here's actually 2 Hall of Fame Cleveland Browns football players. They're actually teammates. And so if you're Jim Brown, who do you want to meet as you're going down the field? Well, on the left is Bill Willis. He's a linebacker, and Marion Motley on the right as a fullback. And so when you're Jim Brown, who do you want to see? You want to see Marion Motley on the field, because he is your teammate who's going to shield you, and he's going to help you get across the goal line. So what I want to point out then is that we here in engineering services, we're trying to look more like that Marion Motley. We're trying to look at that like that fullback who's really helping the developer get to the goal line, and less like that linebacker who's trying to prevent him. That's kind of just an attitude change that we're seeing here in our group, and you'll see that come across as we continue talking. So how are we doing that? And so tonight's fee ordinance is one of those things, but I want to show you kind of the whole package so you can get a feel for how this works. So, and I have a much longer version of this presentation. This is abbreviated, but I want to talk about 4 principles: reducing delay, reducing expenses, good investments, and really getting good stakeholder support. And so I want to focus on the delay component of this. Reducing delays mostly. But I want to just touch on the other 3 briefly, and I'll go in reverse order. So I'm going to start with improving stakeholder support. So how do we do that? Well, in development, there are a lot of stakeholders, and you know that very well. There's developers, there's motorists, there's utility users, there's neighbors, you know all those people. And so we're trying to maximize support of those stakeholder groups as best we can. And so what's an example? Well, we just talked about a lot of frustration we've gotten in the development community has been because of these riparian regulations. So we listened to that, we heard it, and we're coming to you with changes to fix it. So we're trying to help that stakeholder support by listening and by acting. So we can see that's one example of how we've been trying to help developers get across the goal line. So just very simple. And then next, I'm mentioning good investments. So obviously sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And I want to offer 2 brief examples of those kinds of investments and I've already discussed those here in this group before, but in this different context. So first, we have a investment in making new code provisions. We're looking at a new code chapter, and we'll be coming back to you in the next month or two with final language to be adopted to implement an entire code chapter that takes all the infrastructure and puts them in one place. We talked about that already before. So that is, that's in the works. And then second, we've already talked about as well, this idea of this fish ladder, this metaphorical fish ladder called impact fees. So that, how do we get that, if you remember the discussion before, how do we get project 4 over that fish ladder? Well, the idea is to start thinking about having projects contribute enough so that when we get to the final stage, that we can get that traffic signal built. We talked about that already. So there's just 2 opportunities to spend money to help improve the system and get developers, like the project 4 here, over the finish line. And then my last quick example here being eliminating unnecessary expenses. You don't always have to spend money to save money. We can actually save money in other ways. And so just one quick example of that is this graph here on the screen. In a project, when you want to make changes, the sooner you are in the project, the cheaper it is to make those changes. So the more you wait, the more expensive it gets to make those changes. Well, it's common in this industry that someone like our group would not be involved until late in the design process. And often people in our role will say, just come to me when you're ready for final review. But often, the sooner we get involved, the more we can save the designer money, or we can save the developer money, we can avoid delay. And so by devoting those staff resources earlier in the projects, we can help save money. And so that's just one of the ways that we can help cut those unnecessary expenses by getting involved sooner and getting input sooner. A very simple fix to help people save some money. So now to the main topic I want to talk about, which really relates to this fee ordinance, and that's this issue of cutting delay. So on the screen, you can see here, here are the interest rates for delay. And I'm not going to go through the whole chart, but you can see here, just on a $10 million project, 1 month is $54,000. So delays are a big deal, and often people in the regulatory role don't really take that seriously. So I want to make it clear that by reducing delay, it really can help these developments happen and happen faster. So what are some of the causes for delay? Well, like that linebacker attitude you see, there can be over-cautiousness, either by the reviewer or the designer. There can be combativeness that can cause that delay. We may have a lack of clarity. We talked about that with the regulations. When there's lack of clarity, you have to guess, and you have to be arbitrary, and that can cause misunderstandings. And then the last thing, we can have a lack of resources from staff, either from the designer side or from the review side. So our emphasis tonight is the review side. So then how do we fix that? Well, one of the fixes I just already discussed is the mindset change. Just by having a mindset of let's try to get you to the finish line, get you to the goal line, that will reduce delay just by that alone. And then also, I'm presenting it with this fee ordinance, something that's called a money-back guarantee. I put it in quotes, I'll explain why. But what we're committing to do with this fee ordinance change is we're committing to a timeline, a 10-day turnaround time. So we will get you a response, the best response we can get within 10 working days. And if we don't meet that deadline, we will give a discount to your fee. We will actually reduce our fee as an accountability to make sure that we're giving developers better product. So 10% off each time, up to 50% off total. So we're taking this seriously. This is really a commitment to be better. And then, as I mentioned before, this is not only a money savings, but a time savings to be involved sooner. The more staff availability we have, and the more we can help people sooner, that cuts delay as well as time, as well as money. And then in that context now, I want to come to you then to talk about this permit fee change. Because that's really some of this is not a standalone thing, it's involved, it's affecting all this different improvements we're doing. So that's the motivation, to get the developers across the goal. So 2 parts of it I want to discuss real quick. One of them is this, the fee tables, and one of them is the fee methodology. So let's start with the fee tables here. And this should not be hard to explain, because here's an example of our code right now. In chapter 97, at the bottom, the applicant shall also pay a $3 to cover the cost of an inspection. That is in our current regulation. And that's dated what?
68.
1968. So all we're doing, we're just striking that, and we're just writing shall pay plan review and inspection fees at an amount established by ordinance of council. So we're taking those fees, stripping them out of the code, putting them into a table that we can all know where all the fees are in one place. And that does a couple things that should, first of all, should save everyone time by being able to find them all. And then second, it would allow future councils, if you choose, to do inflationary adjustments to those fees as needed, all in one place, so that they can find them all through the code. Okay, so the more complicated issue is this fee methodology change. And I'll give you a little, hopefully this won't take too long. So to explain now, we have these 3 phases I showed you earlier. The way the fees work today is when you submit a plan for review, there's no fee. We bill actual costs. So we take city time, we take the consultant time, we tabulate it, and then send them bills once a month, roughly. At the time of permit, we collect a fee that's generally $20 for the smaller projects. We add $50 if it's over an acre, for the most part. And that's the same for any project. And then through inspection, again, there's no inspection fee. It's just that we bill actual cost and send those bills roughly once a month. So what does that look like? Well, so here's a pie graph showing those fees, what they historically have been. So that $20 to $50 fee is that very, very narrow sliver in the center. The light blue is the city billings of plan review and inspection that we have billed to developers. The light green is the consultant plan reviews, and the dark green is the consultant inspections. You can see that consultant inspections have been well over half of the total monies charged to developers for our services. So there's some drawbacks that we or others have noticed about this. One of them is that it's been pointed out that this provides a reversed incentive. So by going slower, we make more money. By going faster, we make less money in our program. And so this doesn't cause the delay, but there's certainly no incentive for delay by doing our fees this way. There's no incentive to do it faster. Another drawback is that there's a lot of time spent tracking time and invoicing. And it is very common that staff underbills our time because trying to track 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 10 minutes there, it's just a wash. And so a lot of the time is uncharged. The program doesn't allow for a budgeting very easily. If you're a developer and want to know what it's going to cost for my fees, they don't know. We don't know. We have to wait and see. So it's not very easy to budget. And then the last part is that there's really not a natural mechanism for addressing the workload increases. There's not a way to really add revenue to give you staff. There's no mechanism for it. It's all actual cost. So the proposal is to collect a simple fixed fee at the time of plan review, to collect a simple fixed fee at the time of permit, and to have no billings. This is the fee is set, and it will be essentially guaranteed and no surprises. So just very briefly looking at, so you can see the chart. I'm not going to go through this chart here, but you can see the fee amounts are based on per site, per acre. They're very easy to understand. which is one example of a difference you'll see is, just not to get too much into the details, but a major subdivision, we, as our review process, will do the entire subdivision, because it's in the city, we do streets and water and sewer and storm drain and all that. For a township subdivision, it's just sewer. So the fee is set to be commensurate to the amount of work we do. So that's what this fee structure does. So it's fair as it would be. And then we also have that for utility work, we can do it for anything. So the whole fee structure then is set based on a fixed fee, based on actual features that are very easy to define and easy to calculate. And the advantages of those are on the right, it's predictable, they can know how much they're going to charge. They're simple to calculate. We have to be held accountable. We have a budget we have to stay within as part of our review process. And then as workload increases, it gives us additional funding to start to see as workload warrants new positions, that funding, it kind of naturally comes out of that process. And then the last thing I want to say is that this is well within the industry standard. The fees are set, we did a calculation, they're set at about 1% or less, roughly, for the construction costs. And we did an audit to see that permit fees are generally speaking 2 to 5%. We found a couple of charts online to see kind of we're in the ballpark for what's normal for the industry. So that's it. So our recommendation is that we take this fee proposal, take it to council, and adopt it and have it effective on January 1st of 2025. So I'm available for any questions.
How do the fees line up with other communities that are doing? I mean, this is a little different than a lot of other communities are doing. You're trying to be ahead of them. Are they in line or a little bit lower?
Most of them are actual cost. So I reached out. So it's really hard to measure.
Okay.
Because they're just whatever it costs, and that's what I found.
So just a ballpark figure, how much revenue is brought in by what we charge for services? Plan review and inspection.
Historically,
Yeah.
total revenue that budgetarily has been roughly $100,000 a year,
Okay.
approximately.
And do you think this is going to increase it, decrease it, keep it the same?
It will increase it a little bit.
It'll increase it.
And part of it, increasing it, is to allow for, in case something goes over, that we don't want to bill extra, so we want to try to make sure we have a cushion to be able to
Right.
to accommodate for that, and have that guarantee, so if we don't make the guarantee that we can use those, but we want to make sure that we're really giving better service.
It's going to be a little bit more for some developments. It's going to be a little bit less for other developments. We're trying to knock those peaks and valleys
Right.
off.
No, it just is easier.
But the other good part about it that developers are telling me is, hey, I'll know exactly what my costs are up front. We're not saying, okay, just bill me and let's see what happens. They're setting forth a budgetary schedule, and now this is a locked-in number. That's very attractive to a lot of them.
Right.
Okay, so then you're looking for a recommendation for an ordinance to go to council to be discussed on the fees, right? I mean,
What's the process for that?
Yeah, how do you want to do it? If you want to submit it up to, refer it to committee, then we
Yeah.
can
Council.
do or advise the committee of the whole and
Right.
what's going
To
on, and then
yeah.
they can take it up, put a vote.
And you said January 1st is when?
Yeah, I think that would be
We would suggest giving a little bit of time to give people notice to
Okay.
prepare for the change.
So do you know historically what is the highest anybody's ever been charged?
I can tell you where I came in from the West Coast. We charged 5% of the construction cost for inspection and 1% for plan review. So 6% of construction costs was where I came from. So that
Well, I mean Wadsworth.
for
Like,
Anecdotally, you hear the story of,
Yeah.
hey, we need a traffic study, so we don't have traffic studies here.
Right.
We don't have any engineers, so we hire an engineer to do a traffic study. They hire an engineer to do a traffic study, and then it's reviewing each other, and that developer's paying for all of those people. So those are high costs for those consultants. This methodology takes some of those consultants away and puts that money back in people's pockets.
Yeah, and we did an analysis of about 25 to 30
Yeah.
projects, And it varied, some were a little less, some a little more. It really, and part of what was hard about it is that we know we didn't recoup all of our costs because
Okay.
so much of the, I mean, when Jim spends 10 minutes on this phone call and 15 minutes,
Yeah.
we're not a lawyer's shop that has a 6-minute
Right.
little tab for every 6 minutes so I can bill my clients. We don't work that way. So it just, it's hard to tell exactly how much we actually were spending.
Yeah, I think traditionally, city government fees don't cover.
Right, I
don't cover
wouldn't think
expenses.
they
I
do.
mean, If we did, people would be,
Yeah,
they'd be howling through the roof.
Yeah.
But I think we just try and do it to offset, a reasonable offset, reasonable amount of time.
right.
Have a recommendation?
Well, I'll make the recommendation that we take it to committee of the whole of this
Okay.
legislation.
Do you second? I'll second it.
Okay, well, okay, then, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward with that then. Do this presentation for committee of the whole then for everybody. All right, then.
Say again?
That's it.
What's that?
Shorter?
Condense the,
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
This was a long version for you.
Yeah.
Right, right, okay, all right. All right, and then the comprehensive plan review for the areas 6 and number 10?
Let me ask you this, is there another meeting at 6 o'clock?
No.
today.
No, I don't think, no.
You want to take time to run through this, or do you want me to hold it till next
Are
meeting?
you guys okay, or do you want it, I mean, we've been
here an hour.
here an hour, but,
I don't care. I don't know if
How long
John
will
would
it
want to
take?
hear it too.
I don't know, it shouldn't take too, I just didn't want to,
Right.
run over, maybe.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Are you two okay? Rest of administration?
Round one. Okay. Well, first of all, a brief background. Okay, why this review of the comprehensive plan? Well, I don't remember, maybe it was February or March, we had the committee of the whole meeting to talk about annexation and annexation policy. And I believe at that time it was suggested that, well, maybe we need to take a look at the comprehensive plan, what needs to be changed, what needs to be updated. So this presentation will talk about 2 of the areas in the comprehensive plan. Changing focus a little bit, not focusing so much on land for annexation, although that comes into play, but it's more or less how to read the plan. What do you want to do? Look through it and how should you read that? So the first issue is, what is the comprehensive plan? It is a tool that guides the decisions the city's going to make, council's going to make regarding the physical, economic, and social aspects of the city. It's really a high-level document. It gives you a real high-level vision of what the city should look like or how it should grow over an extended period of time. And typical timeframes that plans look at are about 20 to 25 years. What's the purpose? What's the desired outcome of the plan? Well, it's to improve quality of life, to look at things, to manage physical growth and development, to plan for the expansion of roadways, utility networks, provide opportunities for economic development or economic activities, housing and recreation. And it's also the basis on which other community plans are based. So things like the park and recreation plan, or public infrastructure, airport master plans, those are kind of all subsets of the comp plan, or they take areas of the comp plan and expand on them more. Most recently was when we did, we had a downtown visioning plan that came out of this, and then we actually had, I think, had almost a complete redevelopment plan for downtown. Mm-hmm. But it all kind of started with this. So what's in the plan now? To give you kind of a brief overview, when the consultant came in and helped draft this plan, we tried to look at, what's going to happen in the city. So we identified areas both within and without the city where development was likely to occur. That's kind of the potential development area plan. And don't try and read it, but it's all online. And then we had several public input sessions as this was being developed. And based on those meetings with the public and other stakeholders, there were some priorities and issues that were spelled out. What did we want the plan to address in 2010? Well, we wanted to look at infrastructure as well as road and traffic improvements. We wanted to make sure that there was good access to and around town. At the time, downtown was a key focus. We wanted to see the downtown revitalized and come back. Transit turned out to be an issue, especially with a lot of the seniors. And obviously, that's still something that needs to be worked on. Park and recreation and trail activity was important at the time. And this is also about the same time we got funding for the interurban trail. Yeah. Economic development is always an important issue. Where if people want to open businesses in town, where can they go? And obviously, housing too was a key issue, and especially housing affordability. Are there enough houses, right price range, right styles to accommodate the most people? So that's kind of what the plan looks at, and then from there it created themes of what we wanted to address, because a lot of those goals and priorities.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but how often, so this goes for 20 to 25 years. Do we ever review it
Yes.
throughout? We're doing that now, but
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of
take a look at updates
Right.
as things change.
Yep.
Okay.
So anyhow, from that list of priorities, okay, is there a theme? Can we break down these goals and priorities? And that's what you find here on page 22 of the comprehensive plan. Well, we wanted to look at land use and development as a theme or a category, service and infrastructure, housing, community mobility. Downtown was given its own spot along with park and recreation, economic development and resource conservation. Conservation. So when we look at plans and how you want to develop, these are the items we try and keep in mind. So under each of those thematic areas, there was created a list of policy goals and recommendations. And again, this is hard to read, but for the theme of neighborhood and housing, I just put this here as an example. Well, one of the things we wanted to do is preserve and enhance existing neighborhoods, support infill development that's appropriate with what's around it, incorporate open space into the development environment. And basically looking at improving the character and the quality of the built environment, including streetscaping. And what do we want our streets to look like? So those are kind of some of the high level areas that the plan looks at. And then from there, the next step was creating the future development plan. Okay. And to do that, we divided the city into 12 character areas. And that helps address these issues more strategically, because some of the issues are the same in these character areas. So, like looking at the map, it's hard to see character area 10 is actually on both sides of the High Street corridor. But for each character area, we did develop, again, some objectives. What do we want to see happen, and how do you make it happen? So the rest of this kind of focused on character areas 6 and 10, because they were the ones that sort of include the Vance property that was subject to the annexation. It's also where a lot of the utilities are located, and where it's close to the highway interchanges. Up in the northeast is where a lot of the development has been and will continue to occur. So again, looking at character area 6, which doesn't necessarily include the Vance property, but it's all that land just to its west. And it has these sub areas there that you see marked A, B, and C. Character area 10, is kind of a new growth area on the north side of town, and you can see it's on both the east and west sides of High Street. We're talking with some folks about potential development over here on the west side. It's going to be a little trickier because of Holmes Brook. We've got some steep slopes, ravines, lack of utilities. Over here, issues aren't quite as intense, so it's likely that this is where things are going to occur. And again, I kind of highlighted the area that I think that we're going to really kind of focus on, or should focus on, when you look at annexations as well. So again, just kind of pulling out here from, and these are all in the comprehensive plan, and I've tried to let you know what the page numbers where you would find this. But here's the objectives for this character area 6, and again, they hit the same things we talked about earlier: quality environment, accessibility, a transportation system, street network that connects. And again, and also the development policies. What are the predominant uses in the area? What do we want to see? So it doesn't spell out what property should be zoned. It just says these are the kind of uses that we want to see, and then it's up to the city to enact zoning that reflects that. Or if we don't have anything on the books that reflects it, to kind of create that zoning. So again, looking at that area in the Great Oaks Trail, it also suggested that some mixed-use development with residential on the upper floors is probably appropriate for some of these areas, especially along maybe Great Oaks Trail. I know years ago when both Kmart and Giant Eagle moved, Kmart closed. Well, 2 big buildings. It's like, what do we do? And the economic development director and I at the time thought this might be a good area where if we had to knock down, start from scratch with some buildings that were closer to the street that would allow for residential uses and smaller retail and service uses as opposed to the large boxes. That never happened because we did end up, over the years finding some tenants to fill those spaces. But if you just kind of look through there, it'll kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. So again, looking at this character area 6 and what it suggests, and the policies that are recommended, are they still valid? And I think the quick answer is yes. Laverne Drive serves the function that's shown here on the plan. It provides another north-south connector. We've had some residential development in this area that's marked A, and that was kind of a high density. Those are where Redwood Apartments are pretty located. Sub-area C, it's again still looking at mixed-use developments. That's the area between Great Oaks and Smoke Rise. But I still think that's a possibility. We have 10 to 15 undeveloped acres. Retail is changing. What's going to happen with Bueller's Plaza? Does it always have to look like that? Or if things become dire, is that a good place to come up with a new development pattern, for the future? But again, coordinated traffic and road network that works is key. Not only for land use but also for considerations in annexation as well. And again, that's what I was just trying to show here. Across this area, the red line represents a potential street connection that we want to see to get folks from High Street all the way to Hartman and back, instead of relying and funneling everyone out to back out to High Street. The character area east section, that's really the part that involves the Vance property that's still in the township. Again, there's some development policies there that talk about, okay, what do we want to see there? It's predominantly single-family dwellings, but it talks about some of the things that we don't really address in the zoning code, but things that maybe we should, and those are the things that build high-quality development. Building orientation, roof pitches, where should parking go? All of these things have an impact. But what it's trying to show you here is that, yeah, even though the land is still in the township, it was anticipated that this would come into the city, and that if so, you probably want to assign a zoning district that's going to allow this type of development or create something new. And you know, I, for one, don't necessarily think that zoning isn't static. It shouldn't remain. Just because we've had R1 through R4 classifications for 70 years doesn't mean we need to keep them. If we keep them, maybe we've got to tweak some of the rules within them. But again, the whole point is that is to show that there's really nothing monolithic about this. It's not specifying that this particular property has to be developed in this way. It's trying to look at the big picture as a whole. And the other thing that I would point out, one of my notes here, the boundaries of the character areas where two come together, that's not a hard and fast line. They kind of bleed into each other, and so some development aspects of character area 6 might overflow into 10 and vice versa. So it's really, there's no perfect answer, I think, in terms of what should be developed. We just really I think we need to look at what do we want to see happen, and then design the regulations kind of around that. So again, in general, though, I would think that the objectives and policies as outlined in the plan are still generally valid. Obviously, that oval I showed you represents areas of the township where that land has already been developed. So it's in the township as larger lot, single family. So the next plan reiteration probably won't really include those. And again, the sub areas within that, I think they have some validity, although there may be some need to change that. I can't remember potential attached. Okay, A is potential attached residential areas, B is mixed use, C is non-retail commercial. Because it's adjacent to high, larger lots, maybe more single family would be appropriate here, and moving some of the mixed use or the townhome developments, mixed uses a little bit further to the west as you get closer to High Street and some of the commercial uses. So what I'm showing is that I think things are there. Could they be tweaked? Yeah, I think so. But I think generally the concept, the idea that they're trying to promote is still valid. What the comp plan doesn't do, it really doesn't determine what the actual land uses or densities are. That's what the underlying zoning does. And it also, again, its real goal is to suggest appropriate locations for various types of development. But it's really the zoning and subdivision regulations that really make this happen. So, getting back to your questions, things to consider are the planning objectives still valid, not just for these two areas, but as a whole. If not, what would you want to recommend in terms of changes? But keep in mind, as we also discussed, counties now able to provide sewer and water. As it moves further south, some of those lands in the township that in the past would easily have been annexed for development within the city may be lost to us. So it's something that I think we need to decide sooner rather than later. And the plan is approaching 13 years old. And you are correct that even though it's got a 20-year time frame, the plan itself even says we got to review this every 5, 10, 15 years.
That's what I was wondering.
And change it as appropriate. So we are approaching year 13. Actually, we're in year 13. I think we're approaching year 14 come January of 2025.
Has it been reviewed before, like I was on council?
Not really.
Okay.
What we've done, and one thing I would refer you to when you get a chance, there is a section in the code near the back called implementation strategies. It starts on page 63. You go a few more pages, there's a list of strategies and who should undertake them. But if you look at that, we've actually done quite a few of them. In fact, the annexation guidelines was a recommendation here, and we developed that a few years ago to kind of do some of the base work for you. Okay, yeah, these areas in town are close to sewer and water, they can easily be serviced. So easily serviced, maybe, easier annexation. Over here, not so much. So maybe if we annex it, we do so with the knowledge that there may not be infrastructure for a number of years. So, but you're getting back to the points I want to make. So I think the time is approaching. So again, keep in mind that if we budget funds, if you want to start this process now, we have the budget funds in 2025. And in the meantime, what do we want to do? And what type of plan do we want? Do we want to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch? Do you want to take this, tweak some of the areas? And what elements in geographic areas should we encompass? But keep in mind that even if we adopted funds and started this process in 2025, the comp plan itself takes about 18 to 24 months to go into effect. That's why we don't review it and update it every 2 to 3 years.
Sure.
Otherwise, that's all we'd be doing. So it is one of those things that it's in place. Every so often you look at it under changing circumstances, and a lot of times instead of changing the plan, we just disregard some of their recommendations because new reality, new things come up.
And
I have
sure, it's
a
costly.
question about this. I think what I got from our discussion about annexation and so forth was that this provides a plan for the developers, for you as city employees, and for any residents of what's going to happen in the city. Okay, it's an overall plan. And it's unfair if you don't know what it is or it's out of date. So that's why I recommended, and I'm hoping others will too, that we tweak it regularly, 3 years, 4 years, just to go review, not review it as in redoing the whole thing, but tweaking it a little bit so we make sure that it's fair to the developers, to the city employees, everybody, about what we know, where we want to go. Because that changes. That changes in 2 or 3 years.
Comprehensive plan is one thing, but then there's the annexation policy. I
Yes.
think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, but also this plan, the comprehensive plan sets the annexation. That's kind of how it led into that, because this plan told the developers what we as a city would say, this is what we want here. And if they want to put that there, and then we as a council have changed our mind, or the city has changed its mind, it's unfair to them, and it's unfair to you guys as promoting it and trying to make it work and that's why we think we had a disagreement earlier this year.
So if you want to look at the Rule 23 that's going to be coming in front of you, that's kind of what I was thinking when I said, look at that first meeting that comes in, committee of the whole, everybody get together.
Right.
We'll go over that history that Jeff's talking about and say, hey, this is what it is now. Should we change something now? And we're going to do this like Glenn was talking about up front, so it saves money for everybody. So we're not, currently the way it is the last thing we would do is zoning. And everybody has spent way too much money and time on that.
And I agree, and that goes right in with what we had earlier in the presentation about being more consistent, being upfront with costs, all that, being user-friendly, and I think that's what's important. That's why we need to keep this regularly updated to some degree. It doesn't have to be a whole full-blown review, but just updated.
So I would just make a comment. When we first started down this road, I don't know, when was it we first started talking about the comprehensive plan? I was part of the update years ago, and I went through and read it pretty thoroughly, and I think I sent an email to people about, what I thought were the most important, most relevant areas for us. I don't think it needs a lot of update. I think it has stood the test of time pretty well, and I wonder about, is this a good use of our time? I'd say, yeah, we put it in, consider putting in the budget for 25, work on a plan, let professionals do it. I don't really agree, with Mr. Parrish about we should be tweaking it. I don't think every council that comes along should tweak the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a comprehensive plan, and when the council adopts it, they don't expect it to be I mean, things just don't change that much. I mean, I would say maybe that thing that you listed on page 53, the implementation plan, that you go through and update that and say, okay, this has been done, and here's what's left.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But the other thing is too, I agree, sometimes, and most communities don't, you know, you adopt a plan and no one has the staffing levels to review it.
Yeah.
Okay, every 3 years, let's take this out, take that out.
Right.
You kind of leave it in there, but your suggestion, I think, is good. Let's look at the implementation.
What's been done, yeah.
What have we done? Maybe update that, and just say, hey.
Absolutely.
You know, here's the 2025 update for the implementation.
Yeah, just like a notes thing. I mean, and it could be, like you said, if there's land in there, township land that's already been developed, take that off the table. I mean, that's a pretty easy thing to do, but
Well,
I
it is,
just don't.
but to update the plan, to remove that from the map, that's a lot of work.
Oh, that is a lot of work.
But that being said, I'm still not opposed to looking at a key, you know, you tell us what key areas you think, hey, maybe we need to rethink some of these.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think they're okay. I didn't
I would say
really.
one thing, if there are major changes with the new council, you know, some are, we don't want to look to a growth towards
Yeah.
that. That's possible, and that's what you're elected, that's your
Yeah.
lane. That certainly, to Mr. Parrish's point, would be very helpful for us to know. If those major changes, and that would change with each council. But if those changes are upfront and we could incorporate or tweak the major changes, I would be happy to try it.
Well, I mean, maybe we just need to have a statement about the council in 2024 supports the comprehensive plan. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if that's what you're looking for, because it definitely, the plan as it stands, I mean, it promotes growth, but not in a crazy way, you know, what I'm
Well, you know,
saying?
one thing that came in since 2010, for example, would be like the Brickyard. All of a sudden now your parks and, you know, part of the comprehensive plan with the parks changed with things that could be done at the Brickyard. So again, maybe that's one area. Again, when you glance at the plan going, okay, well, these ideas are outdated now because now they live at the Brickyard. So, I mean, there might be some things like that come through as major that would be beneficial to be on there, because if a developer comes in and sees, you know, some parks or something like that somewhere, knowing that they're not going to, that's never going to be there anymore because of something else that's happened, you can get those off. So things like that, I guess.
Yeah, and I think really one of the big changes that have occurred that may not really be addressed well in our plan is that I think the dual thing of, you know, online retail and COVID have really put a damper on large commercial projects. So is that maybe something, an amendment we want to look at in the plan, something to encourage, what can we do to encourage smaller businesses, either new builds or in taking over some of the older spaces in town? And, you know, maybe that's some kind of design, you know, design guidelines for certain parts of town, or creating some kind of funding for startup businesses.
Yeah.
Which would be an economic development tool to help them.
I've been thinking too, going to the east end of town, we've got Sacred Heart of the schools. We've got Overlook, we've got the admin building. We're going to have the new 5-6 building. We've got the 7-8 building and the high school, 9 to 12. There's a lot of traffic on the east end. As far as businesses to get food, you've got the Circle K, you know, to get a cup of coffee in the morning, because that's my neck of the woods. And you have to get out of your vehicle to go in, you know, or make it at your house, which I do, or at my school. But there really is no drive-through at that end of town. There's no business at that end of town. You've got the books, the barbecue place, and not much.
One of the things we talked about is economic development.
Yes, we've got,
expansive, right? We focused on downtown, we focused on the south end. Now we've got to focus on the rest of the parts. too.
Let's get going on the east end, because I would like something up there.
You've got a good point, because.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of traffic with all
Yeah,
those people
absolutely.
dropping their kids off, and
And there is vacant land there. I've actually. talked to
I
one
would like to look at that
landlord,
end. I mean, the school
And it's
was
not in the
part-
city?
It is in the city.
So, yeah, so the comprehensive plan, I mean, we're talking about the comprehensive plan. That's not going to do anything about that. That's
No,
somebody
but
that
I
has to
mean,
come
I
up
was
with that idea.
But it
I mean, if
goes
you
back
see
to
the need, other
implementation.
people.
Implementation,
Okay,
yes.
for this area, we need to focus more at what can we do to
Yeah.
encourage new business growth in this.
In that area, some incentives.
There's got to be
Yeah, but
some
that's
things
not-
going in out there, because it's,
All right. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other comments there. We'll move on. All right. Any other business? All right. Our next scheduled meeting will be September the 9th, Monday the 9th, at 5 PM here in council chambers. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
All right. We are adjourned,
all right.
6:31.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.